Pawn shops have seen it all: valuable jewelry, rare collectibles, genuine antiques. But they've also seen people walk in with the most ridiculous items imaginable, expecting hundreds of dollars. Here are 45 times people brought items to pawn shops that were so stupid. The real question was why they even tried. 1. Someone brought a broken microwave that didn't work to a pawn shop, expecting $200. They carried in a microwave that was visibly damaged with a cracked door and burn marks. The pawn shop owner asked if it worked, and they admitted it didn't turn on at all. The owner asked why they thought anyone would buy a broken microwave. They said it was a nice model that just needed a small repair. The owner explained pawn shops don't buy broken appliances that need repair. They insisted it was worth at least $200 because that's what they paid for it new 5 years ago. The owner said a working used microwave sells for maybe $30 and a broken one is worthless. They argued that it just needed a new fuse or something simple. The owner told them to get it repaired first, then come back. They refused, saying repair would cost money. The owner said exactly that's why no one wants it. They left angry, muttering about pawn shops being scams. They tried 3 other pawn shops with the same result. They eventually threw the broken microwave away. The stupidity was bringing a broken appliance to a pawn shop, expecting $200 for something that doesn't work, arguing it just needs repair when that proves it's worthless, and wasting time going to multiple pawn shops with garbage. 2. A person tried to pawn a collection of used batteries expecting $50 thinking batteries were valuable. They brought in a cardboard box filled with dozens of used AA, AAA, C, and D batteries. The pawn shop owner asked what they were trying to sell. They proudly said a battery collection. The owner asked if the batteries were new. They said no, they were used batteries they'd collected over the years. The owner explained used batteries have literally zero value. They argued that batteries are expensive new, so used ones must be worth something. The owner explained used batteries are dead and worthless. They said some might still have a little power left. The owner said pawn shops don't test and resell used batteries for pennies. They asked how much the owner would pay for the whole box. The owner said nothing. Actually, they'd charge to dispose of them properly because batteries are hazardous waste. They were shocked and said they'd just throw them away then. The owner said that's illegal and explained proper battery disposal. They left carrying their box of dead batteries. They tried 2 other pawn shops who also refused. The stupidity was collecting used batteries, thinking they had value, trying to sell dead batteries, arguing used batteries must be worth something, and not understanding that used batteries are literally worthless. 3. Someone brought in a half-eaten birthday cake to a pawn shop asking for $30. They walked in carrying a bakery box with a birthday cake that was clearly partially eaten. The pawn shop owner stared in disbelief. They explained it was from a fancy bakery and cost $60 originally. The owner asked why they thought anyone would buy a half-eaten cake. They said there was still plenty left and it was really good cake. The owner explained that pawn shops don't buy food items, especially partially eaten ones. They argued it was expensive cake from a premium bakery. The owner said it didn't matter, selling used food is a health code violation. They asked if the owner at least wanted to try a piece to see how good it was. The owner declined and asked them to leave with the cake. They said they just needed $30 for rent and thought the cake might work. The owner suggested selling items that aren't perishable and partially eaten. They asked what about the candles on the cake since those were unused. The owner said no one wants used birthday candles. They left with their half-eaten cake. They tried another pawn shop who threatened to call health inspectors. The stupidity was bringing half-eaten food to a pawn shop, expecting $30 for partially consumed cake, not understanding health codes, offering someone a piece of your used cake, and thinking used birthday candles have value. 4. A person tried to pawn 47 promotional keychains from various businesses expecting $100. They brought in a bag filled with cheap plastic and metal keychains from car dealerships, insurance companies, and random businesses. The pawn shop owner asked what this was. They said a valuable keychain collection. The owner examined them and realized they were all free promotional items. They explained they'd collected these over many years from various businesses. The owner said these were given away for free and had no resale value. They argued that there were 47 of them, so together they must be worth something. The owner explained quantity doesn't create value for worthless items. They said some were from businesses that no longer exist, making them vintage. The owner said promotional keychains from defunct businesses are still worthless. They offered to sell the whole collection for $100 or individually for $5 each. The owner declined and explained promotional items are manufactured by the millions. They said surely someone collects these things. The owner said maybe, but they'd pay pennies at a flea market, not a pawn shop. They tried organizing them by color to make them more appealing. The owner asked them to leave. They went to 2 other pawn shops with the same result. The stupidity was collecting free promotional keychains, thinking free items from businesses have value, arguing that quantity matters for worthless items, and trying to sell them individually for $5 each. 5. Someone brought a homework assignment from high school to a pawn shop, thinking it was worth money because it got an A. They walked in carrying a paper and a plastic sleeve. The pawn shop owner asked what it was. They explained it was their history essay from 10th grade that got an A+. The owner asked why they brought this to a pawn shop. They said it was really well written and thought someone might want to buy it. The owner explained pawn shops don't buy homework assignments. They argued it was an excellent paper about World War II. The owner said that doesn't matter. There's no market for someone else's old homework. They said it could help students who need to write similar essays. The owner explained that would be cheating and also illegal. They asked how much the owner thought it was worth. The owner said nothing whatsoever. They said they'd take $20 for it. The owner said no one would pay $20 for a high school essay from a stranger. They insisted it was A+ quality work. The owner asked them to leave. They went to another pawn shop who laughed at them. They eventually posted it online for sale with no buyers. The stupidity was bringing a homework assignment to a pawn shop, thinking your high school essay has monetary value, suggesting someone could use it to cheat, expecting $20 for old homework, and not understanding that personal schoolwork is worthless. 6. A person tried to pawn a used air freshener from their car, asking for $10. They brought in a cardboard pine tree air freshener that was clearly used in half its original size. The pawn shop owner asked what this was supposed to be. They said a car air freshener. The owner said obviously, but why bring it here? They explained it was barely used and still had some scent left. The owner explained no one buys used air fresheners. They said it was a premium brand that cost $3 new. The owner said new ones cost $3, so a used one is worth nothing. They argued it still works and still smells like pine. The owner explained air fresheners are disposable single-use items. They said they just needed a few dollars. The owner suggested pawning something actually valuable. They asked if the owner wanted to smell it to verify the quality. The owner declined firmly. They reduced their asking price to $5, then $2. The owner said no amount makes a used air freshener worth buying. They left insulted. They tried another pawn shop who asked them to leave immediately. The stupidity was bringing a used air freshener to a pawn shop, expecting $10 for a disposable item that cost $3 new, offering to let someone smell your used car freshener and thinking a used one has any value at all. 7. Someone brought 200 used paper plates to a pawn shop expecting $50. They carried in a large box filled with used paper plates that had been rinsed but clearly used. The pawn shop owner opened the box and was confused. They explained these were quality paper plates. The owner asked why they were used. They said they'd rinsed them after a party, and they were still good. The owner explained no one buys used disposable plates. They argued these were the expensive, thick kind, not cheap ones. The owner said it doesn't matter. Used disposable items are garbage. They said there were 200 plates, so as a bulk lot, they must be worth something. The owner explained bulk garbage is still garbage. They offered to demonstrate how sturdy the plates still were. The owner declined and asked why they'd rinse and keep used paper plates. They said they didn't want to be wasteful. The owner said the waste happened when they used disposable plates, then tried to reuse them. They asked for $50 for the whole box. The owner said absolutely not. They reduced to $20, then $10. The owner asked them to leave with their used plates. They tried another pawn shop with the same reaction. The stupidity was rinsing and keeping used paper plates, bringing used disposables to a pawn shop, expecting $50 for garbage, and not understanding that disposable means single use. 8. A person tried to pawn a half-full bottle of shampoo, asking for $8. They brought in a large shampoo bottle that was approximately half empty. The pawn shop owner asked what they wanted for a half-used shampoo bottle. They explained it was expensive salon shampoo that cost $25 full. The owner said pawn shops don't buy opened personal care products. They argued it was barely used and premium quality. The owner explained selling used shampoo is unsanitary and likely illegal. They said they'd only used it a few times. The owner asked why they were trying to pawn shampoo. They said they needed money and this was expensive shampoo. The owner suggested pawning jewelry or electronics, not toiletries. They insisted salon shampoo holds its value. The owner said no, it doesn't, especially when half used. They offered to throw in the matching conditioner, also half used, for $15 total. The owner firmly declined. They asked if the owner wanted to smell it to verify quality. The owner said no and asked them to leave. They went to another pawn shop who refused immediately. They eventually used the shampoo themselves. The stupidity was trying to pawn half-used shampoo, expecting $8 for opened toiletries, thinking personal care products are pawn shop items, and offering to include your half-used conditioner as a bundled deal. 9. Someone brought a collection of fast food toys from kids' meals expecting $200. They carried in a bag of plastic toys from McDonald's, Burger King, and other fast food kids' meals. The pawn shop owner asked what these were. They proudly explained it was their fast food toy collection from the past 5 years. The owner examined them and said these are free toys from kids' meals. They argued these particular toys are from limited-time promotions, making them collectible. The owner said most fast food toys have no collector value. They insisted some Happy Meal toys sell for thousands online. The owner said extremely rare ones from decades ago maybe, but not these recent common ones. They had researched and claimed these specific toys sell for $5, $10 each. The owner looked them up and showed listings for $1 twos with no buyers. They said their collection had 50 toys, so $200 was reasonable. The owner explained 50 worthless toys equals worthless collection. They offered to sort them by restaurant to make them more organized. The owner declined. They reduced to $100, then $50. The owner said no amount makes this worth buying. They tried 2 other pawn shops who also declined. The stupidity was collecting free fast food toys expecting value, thinking recent common toys are collectible, claiming they sell for $5, $10 when they list for $1 with no buyers, and expecting $200 for free promotional toys. 10. A person tried to pawn a box of opened bandages asking for $15 more. They brought in a box of bandages that was opened with many missing. The pawn shop owner asked why they were trying to pawn opened bandages. They explained they'd bought a large box, but only needed a few. The owner said no one buys opened medical supplies. They argued the remaining bandages were unused and still sterile in their wrappers. The owner explained selling opened medical supplies is against health codes. They said the box cost $20 new and it's still mostly full. The owner said opened doesn't matter for medical supplies. They insisted each individual bandage was wrapped so it's sanitary. The owner explained regulations prohibit selling opened medical supplies regardless. They offered to sell just the unopened ones. The owner said they're all from an opened box, so no. They asked why this was different from buying Band-Aids at a garage sale. The owner said garage sales also shouldn't sell opened medical supplies. They reduced their price to $10, then $5. The owner still declined. They left confused about why no one wants opened bandages. They tried another pawn shop with the same result. The stupidity was trying to sell opened bandages, not understanding medical supply regulations, arguing individual wrappers make it sanitary, comparing pawn shops to garage sales, and expecting $15 for opened medical supplies. 11. Someone brought a bag of used gift wrap and bows to a pawn shop asking for $25. They carried in a large bag filled with wrapping paper that had been carefully removed from gifts and flattened, plus used bows. The pawn shop owner looked in the bag confused. They explained this was gently used gift wrap they'd collected and flattened. The owner asked why they thought anyone would buy used wrapping paper. They said quality gift wrap is expensive and this was barely wrinkled. The owner explained wrapping paper is cheap and no one buys it used. They argued these were premium patterns and the bows were reusable. The owner said bows that have been crushed and used are worthless. They insisted they'd carefully preserved everything. The owner asked why they saved used wrapping paper. They said to be economical and now they needed cash. The owner suggested pawning actual valuables. They said there were 30 sheets of paper and 50 bows. The owner said quantity doesn't create value for garbage. They reduced to $15, then $10. The owner declined at any price. They tried another pawn shop who was baffled. The stupidity was collecting and flattening used gift wrap, trying to sell used single-use items, expecting $25 for used wrapping paper, and not understanding that wrapping paper is cheap enough to buy new. 12. A person tried to pawn a hotel soap collection expecting $40. They brought in a bag of those small complimentary soaps from hotels. The pawn shop owner counted approximately 60 tiny hotel soaps. They explained they'd collected these from various hotels over the years. The owner asked why they brought hotel freebies to a pawn shop. They said these were from nice hotels and good quality soap. The owner explained hotel soaps are free and have no resale value. They argued that luxury hotel soaps are premium products. The owner said they're still free promotional items. They calculated that 60 soaps at current market value was worth at least $40. The owner said there is no market value for used hotel soaps. They insisted the soaps were unused, still in wrappers. The owner said it doesn't matter, they're free items. They showed different soaps from different hotels, claiming variety added value. The owner asked them to leave. They offered to throw in hotel shampoo bottles too. The owner firmly declined. They tried another pawn shop who laughed. The stupidity was collecting free hotel soaps, thinking complimentary toiletries have monetary value, calculating market value for free items, expecting $40 for hotel freebies, and offering to include hotel shampoo bottles as a bonus. 13. Someone brought a pile of grocery store receipts to a pawn shop asking for $20. They carried in a folder stuffed with hundreds of grocery receipts. The pawn shop owner asked what these were for. They explained these were their grocery receipts from the past 2 years. The owner asked why they brought receipts to a pawn shop. They said receipts have value for tax purposes or budgeting. The owner explained these are someone else's personal receipts with no value to anyone else. They argued that people buy receipts for various reasons. The owner said not at pawn shops, they don't. They suggested the owner could use them for business records. The owner explained that would be fraud. They said maybe someone needs receipts for expense reports. The owner said that would also be fraud. They insisted there must be some use for hundreds of receipts. The owner said yes, recycling them. They reduced their asking price to $10, then $5. The owner said no amount makes receipts valuable. They left disappointed. They tried posting the receipts online with no buyers. The stupidity was collecting grocery receipts for years, bringing personal receipts to a pawn shop, thinking receipts have monetary value to strangers, suggesting fraudulent uses and expecting $20 for paper that belongs in recycling. 14. A person tried to pawn a broken umbrella asking for $15 because it was a designer brand. They brought in an umbrella with several broken spokes and torn fabric. The pawn shop owner pointed out it was clearly broken. They acknowledged it was damaged, but insisted it was originally an expensive designer brand. The owner said broken designer items are still broken. They argued the brand name alone gave it value. The owner explained no one wants a broken umbrella regardless of brand. They said it could be repaired. The owner said umbrella repair costs more than a new umbrella. They insisted someone who likes that designer might want it for parts. The owner said there's no market for broken umbrella parts. They showed the designer logo proving authenticity. The owner said authenticity doesn't matter when it's broken. They reduced to $10, then $5. The owner said a broken umbrella is worthless at any price. They argued the handle was still good. The owner asked them to leave. They tried another pawn shop with the same result. The stupidity was bringing a broken umbrella to a pawn shop, thinking brand names matter when items are broken, suggesting someone wants it for parts, expecting $15 for something that doesn't function, and arguing the handle alone has value. 15. Someone brought 30 used greeting cards they'd received to a pawn shop, expecting $45. They carried in a box of birthday and holiday cards they'd received from various people. The pawn shop owner looked through them, confused. They explained these were sentimental cards with nice messages. The owner asked why they thought cards sent to them had value. They said greeting cards are expensive new. The owner said these are used cards with personal messages to someone else. They argued some were musical cards, which are premium. The owner pointed out the batteries in the musical cards were dead. They said the cards have beautiful artwork. The owner explained the artwork is mass-produced and these are used. They suggested the owner could cross out the names and reuse them. The owner said no one buys used greeting cards to cross out and reuse. They insisted some were from Hallmark, which is a quality brand. The owner said brand doesn't matter for used greeting cards. They reduced to $30, then $20, then $10. The owner declined at every price. They tried another pawn shop who was stunned. The stupidity was bringing greeting cards people sent you to a pawn shop, thinking used cards with personal messages have value, suggesting someone cross out names and reuse them, expecting $45 for cards, and arguing Hallmark brand makes used greeting cards valuable. 16. A person tried to pawn a half-finished jigsaw puzzle asking for $20. They brought in a jigsaw puzzle box that was open with pieces loose inside. The pawn shop owner asked if the puzzle was complete. They admitted it wasn't. They'd completed about half before getting bored. The owner explained no one buys incomplete puzzles. They argued someone might enjoy finishing it. The owner said people want complete new puzzles, not someone's unfinished project. They said the puzzle was 1,000 pieces originally. The owner asked how many pieces were missing. They weren't sure, maybe 100 or 200. The owner said a puzzle missing pieces is worthless. They offered to count the pieces to determine exact amount missing. The owner declined. They argued partial puzzles are cheaper than full ones, so good value. The owner explained incomplete puzzles have no value at all. They reduced to $10, then $5. The owner said no price makes this worth buying. They asked if the owner would buy it if they found the missing pieces. The owner said maybe if new and complete, but probably not. They tried another pawn shop who refused immediately. The stupidity was bringing an incomplete jigsaw puzzle to a pawn shop, not knowing how many pieces are missing, thinking someone wants your half-finished puzzle, expecting $20 for incomplete puzzle, and arguing partial puzzles are a good value. 17. Someone brought a collection of used batteries from old electronics asking for $60. They carried in a bag of various batteries removed from old phones, laptops, and cameras. The pawn shop owner asked what these were. They said a collection of rechargeable batteries. The owner asked if they worked. They said some might still hold a charge. The owner explained used batteries have no value. They argued rechargeable batteries are expensive new. The owner said these are old, dead batteries from outdated electronics. They insisted someone with old devices needs these batteries. The owner explained old batteries lose capacity and are worthless. They said there were 20 batteries in various sizes. The owner said quantity doesn't matter for worthless items. They offered to test them to prove some still work. The owner declined and said it's not worth the time. They reduced to $40, then $20. The owner said no amount makes dead batteries valuable. They asked about recycling value. The owner said you pay to recycle batteries, not get paid. They tried 2 other pawn shops with the same result. The stupidity was collecting old batteries from dead electronics, thinking dead rechargeable batteries have value, expecting $60 for worthless batteries and not knowing you pay for battery disposal. 18. A person tried to pawn a half-used bottle of cologne asking for $30 because it was expensive originally. They brought in a designer cologne bottle about 40% full. The pawn shop owner asked about a half-empty cologne bottle. They explained it originally cost $80, so half of it should be worth $40. The owner said that's not how used personal care products work. They argued it was authentic designer cologne. The owner explained pawn shops don't buy opened fragrances. They said it smells amazing and offered to let the owner smell it. The owner declined, explaining it's unsanitary to buy used cologne. They insisted cologne doesn't go bad quickly. The owner said it doesn't matter. No market for used fragrances. They reduced to $20, then $15. The owner still declined. They asked why people buy used cologne online. The owner said they generally don't unless it's rare and full. They offered to throw in a matching aftershave, also half-used. The owner asked them to leave. They tried another pawn shop who also refused. The stupidity was trying to pawn half-used cologne, calculating worth as half the original price, offering to let someone smell your used fragrance, and thinking used personal care products have pawn value. 19. Someone brought a stack of expired coupons to a pawn shop asking for $25. They carried in a folder with hundreds of manufacturer coupons that were expired. The pawn shop owner saw they were all expired and asked why they brought these. They explained they'd clipped coupons for years and never used them all. The owner said these are expired and literally worthless. They argued someone might be able to use them anyway. The owner explained stores won't accept expired coupons. They suggested some stores are lenient about expiration dates. The owner said that doesn't give expired coupons resale value. They calculated that at face value, the coupons totaled over $500 in savings. The owner explained face value is irrelevant when they are expired. They offered to sell only coupons expired less than a month. The owner said any expired coupon is worthless. They reduced to $10, then $5. The owner said no amount makes expired coupons valuable. They asked if the owner knew anyone who uses coupons. The owner asked them to leave. They tried posting them online with no interest. The stupidity was collecting coupons without using them, bringing expired coupons to a pawn shop, arguing stores might accept them anyway, calculating face value of expired coupons, and expecting $25 for worthless paper. 20. A person tried to pawn a used tissue box asking for $3 because it had 2 tissues left. They brought in a decorative tissue box with 2 tissues remaining. The pawn shop owner stared in disbelief at the nearly empty tissue box. They explained the box was decorative and still had tissues in it. The owner asked why anyone would buy a nearly empty tissue box. They argued it was a nice ceramic decorative holder. The owner looked closer and realized it was cardboard with a decorative cover. They insisted the design was beautiful. The owner explained no one buys nearly empty tissue boxes. They said tissue boxes cost $4, so half used is worth $2 at least. The owner said that logic makes no sense for disposable products. They offered to throw in the 2 remaining tissues as a bonus. The owner laughed and asked if this was a joke. They seemed genuinely confused why this wasn't worth money. The owner explained that tissue boxes are disposable with no resale value. They reduced to $2, then $1. The owner said not even for free. They left offended. They took it to another pawn shop who asked them to leave immediately. The stupidity was bringing a nearly empty tissue box to a pawn shop, thinking 2 remaining tissues add value, calculating used disposable products have half the value, and being offended, no one wants your used tissue box. 21. Someone brought a collection of used dental floss containers asking for $20. They carried in a bag of empty dental floss containers that were clean but used. The pawn shop owner asked what the empty containers were for. They explained these were quality dental floss containers they'd saved. The owner asked why they saved empty dental floss containers. They said the containers were durable and reusable. The owner explained, no one buys used dental floss containers. They argued someone could refill them with new floss. The owner said that makes no sense. Just buy new floss. They insisted some were premium brands with nice designs. The owner said the brand doesn't matter for empty containers. They counted 30 containers and said that must be worth something. The owner said 30 pieces of garbage equals garbage. They offered to clean them better if that helped. The owner said no amount of cleaning makes them valuable. They reduced to $10, then $5. The owner asked them to leave. They tried another pawn shop who was confused why someone saved these. The stupidity was saving empty dental floss containers, thinking empty containers have value, suggesting someone refill them with new floss, expecting $20 for garbage, and offering to clean garbage better. 22. A person tried to pawn a half-eaten bag of chips asking for $2. They brought in an opened bag of chips that was approximately half full. The pawn shop owner asked why they brought half-eaten chips to a pawn shop. They explained the chips were a premium brand and still fresh. The owner said pawn shops absolutely don't buy opened food. They argued there were still a lot of chips left. The owner explained selling opened food is against health codes. They insisted they'd only eaten half, so it's a good value. The owner said no one buys strangers half-eaten food. They offered to let the owner try a chip to verify quality. The owner firmly declined. They said they just needed $2, and this seemed reasonable. The owner said nothing about this is reasonable. They reduced to $1, then 50 cents. The owner asked them to leave with their chips. They finished eating the chips in the parking lot. They went to another pawn shop who threatened to call police if they didn't leave. The stupidity was bringing half-eaten food to a pawn shop, expecting money for opened chips, offering to let someone try your half-eaten chips, and thinking this was reasonable for any amount. 23. Someone brought a collection of bottle caps from soda bottles asking for $50. They carried in a large jar filled with hundreds of bottle caps. The pawn shop owner asked what these were supposed to be. They explained it was their bottle cap collection from years of drinking soda. The owner said bottle caps have no value. They argued some bottle caps are collectible. The owner said maybe rare vintage ones, not modern common ones. They insisted quantity must equal value. There were 300 caps. The owner said 300 worthless items is still worthless. They showed different designs and colors, claiming variety matters. The owner explained these are mass-produced trash. They suggested crafters might want them for projects. The owner said crafters get free bottle caps from recycling. They reduced to $30, then $20, then $10. The owner declined at every price. They asked if keeping the rare ones separate helped. The owner asked what makes any of them rare. They couldn't answer. They tried another pawn shop with the same result. The stupidity was collecting common bottle caps, thinking quantity creates value, expecting $50 for bottle caps, claiming modern caps are rare and not understanding these are worth nothing. 24. A person tried to pawn a used phone case with a cracked back, asking for $15. They brought in a phone case that was scratched and had a cracked back panel. The pawn shop owner examined the damaged case. They explained it was for an iPhone and cases are expensive. The owner pointed out the case was damaged. They said it still functions to protect a phone. The owner asked why anyone would buy a damaged case. They argued it was better than no case at all. The owner explained damaged cases sell for nothing. They insisted it was originally $40 new. The owner said used cases sell for a few dollars maximum and damaged ones are worthless. They offered to discount it to $10. The owner said it's not about price. No one wants damaged cases. They said someone with the same old phone model might need it. The owner explained they'd buy a cheap new case, not a broken used one. They reduced to $5, then $3. The owner still declined. They tried another pawn shop who also refused. The stupidity was trying to pawn a damaged phone case, expecting $15 for a cracked case, arguing damage doesn't matter, and not understanding people buy cheap new cases, not expensive broken used ones. 25. Someone brought a collection of used pencil erasers asking for $10. They carried in a small bag of pencil erasers that were various sizes and clearly used. The pawn shop owner asked what these partially used erasers were for. They explained they were quality erasers from name-brand pencils. The owner asked why they collected used erasers. They said they'd remove them from pencils before throwing the pencils away. The owner explained no one buys used erasers. They argued erasers are reusable until completely worn down. The owner said these are basically garbage. They counted 25 erasers and said that's substantial. The owner said quantity of garbage is still garbage. They insisted some were barely used. The owner asked why someone would buy strangers' used erasers. They suggested artists or students might need them. The owner said erasers cost pennies new. They reduced to $5, then $2. The owner declined. They asked if selling them individually helped. The owner said no amount or arrangement makes used erasers valuable. They tried another pawn shop who asked them to leave. The stupidity was collecting used erasers from old pencils, bringing them to a pawn shop, expecting $10 for garbage, and not understanding erasers cost almost nothing new. 26. A person tried to pawn a half-used notebook with their notes asking for $12. They brought in a notebook that was about 40% full of handwritten notes. The pawn shop owner asked what this was. They explained it was a partially used notebook with lots of empty pages left. The owner asked about the pages with writing. They said those were their personal notes, but plenty of blank pages remained. The owner explained no one buys partially used notebooks. They argued the blank pages still have value. The owner said new notebooks cost $2, so a used one with writing in it is worthless. They offered to tear out the pages with writing. The owner said that defeats the purpose of a bound notebook. They insisted someone might find their notes interesting or helpful. The owner explained no one wants a stranger's random notes. They said it was a premium brand notebook. The owner said that doesn't matter when it's used. They reduced to $80, then $5, then $3. The owner declined at every price. They tried another pawn shop who refused immediately. The stupidity was trying to pawn a partially used notebook, thinking blank pages have value despite having your writing throughout, offering to tear out used pages, expecting $12 for a used $2 notebook, and thinking strangers want your personal notes. 27. Someone brought a jar of collected pennies asking for face value plus $10 for collection value. They carried in a large jar of pennies they'd collected. The pawn shop owner asked how much was in the jar. They estimated about $15 in pennies but wanted $25 total. The owner asked why they wanted more than face value. They explained it took time to collect these and that's worth something. The owner said no, collecting pennies doesn't add value. They argued pennies are becoming rare since people don't use cash. The owner explained pennies are still minted by the millions. They insisted older pennies in the jar were valuable. The owner looked through it and found all common dates. They said surely time spent collecting equals value. The owner explained pawn shops give face value for common coins at most. They offered to sell just the rare ones. The owner said there were no rare ones. They reduced to face value plus $5. The owner offered face value only. They refused, saying that's insulting. They took the jar to another pawn shop with the same offer. The stupidity was expecting more than face value for common pennies, arguing collection time adds value, but claiming pennies are becoming rare and being insulted by face value offers. 28. A person tried to pawn a collection of used hotel room keys asking for $30. They brought in a bag of those plastic hotel key cards from various hotels. The pawn shop owner asked what these were. They explained these were hotel key cards they'd kept from trips over the years. The owner asked why anyone would buy used hotel keys. They said they were souvenirs from different hotels. The owner explained hotel keys have no value and stop working after checkout. They argued some were from luxury hotels. The owner said that doesn't matter. They're deactivated plastic cards. They insisted collectors might want hotel memorabilia. The owner said collecting deactivated hotel keys is not a thing. They said there were 40 keys from different cities. The owner explained quantity doesn't create value for worthless items. They offered to organize them by hotel chain. The owner asked them to leave. They reduced to $20, then $10. The owner said no price makes used hotel keys valuable. They tried another pawn shop who was baffled. The stupidity was keeping used hotel key cards, thinking they're collectible souvenirs, expecting $30 for deactivated plastic cards, and not understanding hotel keys are worthless after checkout. 29. Someone brought a collection of used birthday candles asking for $15. They carried in a bag of birthday candles that had been used on various cakes. The pawn shop owner noticed they were clearly used with burned wicks and wax residue. They explained these were premium candles that were barely burned. The owner said no one buys used birthday candles. They argued there was still plenty of wax left on each one. The owner explained candles are cheap and no one wants used ones. They insisted these were specialty number candles which are more expensive. The owner said even specialty candles are cheap, new and worthless used. They said some were shaped like popular characters. The owner explained that doesn't matter when they are used. They counted 30 candles and said that must be worth something. The owner said 30 used candles equals garbage. They offered to wash them better. The owner said no amount of washing makes used birthday candles valuable. They reduced to $10, then $5. The owner declined. They tried another pawn shop who laughed. The stupidity was collecting used birthday candles, bringing them to a pawn shop, expecting $15 for used candles, thinking character-shaped matters when they're used, and offering to wash them better. 30. A person tried to pawn a half-full tube of toothpaste asking for $3. They brought in a tube of toothpaste that was approximately half empty. The pawn shop owner asked about the half-used toothpaste. They explained it was premium whitening toothpaste that cost $6 new. The owner said pawn shops don't buy opened toiletries. They argued there was still plenty of toothpaste left. The owner explained selling used personal care products is against health codes. They insisted the tube was clean and never contaminated. The owner said it doesn't matter. No one buys strangers' used toothpaste. They said half used means it's worth half price. The owner said that logic doesn't apply to personal hygiene products. They offered to demonstrate it was unused by squeezing some out. The owner firmly declined. They reduced to $2, then $1. The owner asked them to leave. They took it to another pawn shop who refused to even discuss it. The stupidity was trying to pawn half-used toothpaste, thinking personal care products can be resold used, calculating half-used equals half price, and offering to squeeze out toothpaste to prove it's fine. 31. Someone brought a collection of used bread ties asking for $8. They carried in a bag of those little plastic and wire ties from bread bags. The pawn shop owner looked in the bag confused at hundreds of bread ties. They explained they had been collecting these for years. The owner asked why they collected bread ties. They said people use them for crafts and organization. The owner said they get them free from bread bags. They argued having this many together has value. The owner explained free items in bulk are still free. They insisted crafters pay for bulk supplies. The owner said not for something everyone gets free daily. They counted over 200 ties and said that's worth something. The owner said 200 pieces of free garbage is still free garbage. They showed different colors claiming variety matters. The owner asked them to leave. They reduced to $5 then $2. The owner declined at every price. They tried another pawn shop who was stunned anyone collected these. The stupidity was collecting bread ties for years, thinking free items in bulk have value, expecting $8 for ties, everyone gets free, and arguing crafters would pay for free items. 32. A person tried to pawn a half-read paperback book with a broken spine, asking for $8. They brought in a paperback novel that was clearly well-read with a broken spine and bent pages. The pawn shop owner examined the damaged book. They explained it was a bestseller when it came out. The owner pointed out the condition was poor. They argued the story inside is the same, regardless of condition. The owner explained damaged books have minimal value. They insisted it was readable despite cosmetic damage. The owner said used bookstores might give 50 cents for it. They expected $8 because that's what they paid new. The owner explained used items aren't worth new prices, especially when damaged. They offered to include their bookmark as a bonus. The owner declined. They asked if the author's signature would help. The owner asked if it was signed. They said no, but if it was. The owner said hypotheticals don't add value. They reduced to $5, then $3. The owner offered 50 cents. They refused, insulted. The stupidity was trying to pawn a damaged paperback, expecting $8 for a worn book, arguing the story matters not condition, offering to include a bookmark, and asking about hypothetical signatures. 33. Someone brought a collection of used tissues asking for $5, explaining they were hardly used. They carried in a bag of used tissues that they claimed were gently used. The pawn shop owner was horrified and asked them to leave immediately. They explained they'd only used each tissue once lightly. The owner said selling used tissues is disgusting and unsanitary. They argued tissues could be washed and reused. The owner refused to discuss it further. They insisted this was economical and environmentally friendly. The owner threatened to call police if they didn't leave. They said they just needed $5. The owner physically walked them to the door. They tried another pawn shop who called security immediately. They posted online about pawn shops being judgmental. Comments universally criticized them for trying to sell used tissues. They still didn't understand what they did wrong. The stupidity was collecting used tissues, bringing them to a pawn shop, claiming they were hardly used, expecting $5 for biohazard waste, arguing tissues can be washed and reused, and not understanding how disgusting this was. 34. A person tried to pawn a pizza box from a famous pizza place asking for $10. They brought in an empty pizza box with grease stains from a well-known pizzeria. The pawn shop owner asked about the empty pizza box. They explained it was from a famous pizza place that might close soon. The owner asked why that matters for an empty box. They argued it could become a collectible if the restaurant closes. The owner explained empty pizza boxes aren't collectible. They insisted the box had the restaurant's logo. The owner said logos don't make trash valuable. They said someone might want it for nostalgia. The owner explained no one wants greasy used pizza boxes. They offered to clean the grease stains. The owner said that doesn't help. They reduced to $7, then $5, then $3. The owner declined at any price. They asked if keeping it flat versus folded mattered. The owner asked them to leave. They tried posting it online with no interest. The stupidity was keeping an empty pizza box, bringing it to a pawn shop, thinking restaurants closing makes boxes collectible, expecting $10 for a greasy box, and asking if folding it matters. 35. Someone brought a half-eaten sandwich to a pawn shop, asking for $4 because they were no longer hungry. They walked in carrying a sandwich that was clearly partially eaten. The pawn shop owner stared in disbelief. They explained they'd bought an expensive sandwich but were too full to finish it. The owner asked why they brought a half-eaten sandwich to a pawn shop. They said it was from a gourmet shop and cost $9 originally. The owner explained pawn shops don't buy food, especially eaten food. They argued it was still perfectly good and most of it was left. The owner said selling someone's half-eaten food is illegal and disgusting. They offered to let the owner inspect it to verify quality. The owner firmly refused. They reduced to $3, then $2. The owner asked them to leave immediately. They took the sandwich with them. They tried another pawn shop who threatened to call police. They ate the rest of the sandwich outside. The stupidity was bringing a half-eaten sandwich to a pawn shop. Thinking partially eaten food has resale value, expecting $4 for your leftovers, offering to let someone inspect your half-eaten sandwich, and trying multiple pawn shops with food. 36. A person tried to pawn a collection of used lottery tickets asking for $20, explaining they might be worth something. They brought in a box of losing lottery tickets they'd saved. The pawn shop owner asked what these were. They explained these were lottery tickets they'd kept just in case. The owner said these are losing tickets with no value. They argued sometimes tickets have secondary prizes unchecked. The owner said if they haven't checked in years, they're expired anyway. They insisted some might be winners. The owner said if they were winners, they'd know when they bought them. They explained they never checked and wanted to sell them. The owner said selling unchecked tickets means selling guaranteed losers. They asked if the owner would split any winnings found. The owner declined and asked them to leave. They took them to another pawn shop with the same result. They eventually checked them all. Every single one was a loser. The stupidity was saving losing lottery tickets, bringing them to a pawn shop unchecked, expecting $20 for tickets they never verified, thinking expired tickets have value, and asking to split hypothetical winnings. 37. Someone brought a collection of used dental floss asking for $15, explaining it was gently used. They carried in several containers of dental floss they claimed was barely used. The pawn shop owner was disgusted and asked what this was. They explained the floss was high quality and only used a few times. The owner said selling used dental floss is revolting and unsanitary. They argued each section of floss was only used once. The owner said that doesn't matter. No one buys used dental floss. They insisted it was expensive floss. The owner refused to discuss it. They said they'd only used about 20% of each container. The owner asked them to leave immediately. They seemed confused why this was being rejected. They tried another pawn shop who threatened to call health inspectors. They still tried posting it online where comments roasted them. The stupidity was saving used dental floss, bringing it to a pawn shop, claiming it was gently used, expecting $15 for used hygiene products, not understanding how disgusting this was, and trying multiple places to sell used floss. 38. A person tried to pawn a half-burned candle asking for $8 because it was designer brand. They brought in a candle that was approximately 60% burned down. The pawn shop owner asked about the mostly burned candle. They explained it was originally $20 from an expensive brand. The owner said used candles have minimal value. They argued there was still 40% of the candle left. The owner explained candles are consumable and lose value when used. They insisted the scent was still strong. The owner said that doesn't create resale value. They said designer candles hold their value. The owner explained not when they're mostly burned. They offered to include matches as a bundle. The owner declined. They reduced to $5 to then $3. The owner said used candles aren't worth buying. They asked if the decorative jar added value. The owner said the jar is worth maybe 50 cents. They tried another pawn shop with the same result. The stupidity was trying to pawn a mostly burned candle, expecting $8 for a used candle, calculating remaining percentage as value, thinking designer brands matter when burned, and offering to include matches. 39. Someone brought a collection of used straws from fast food restaurants asking for $12. They carried in a bag of plastic straws from various restaurants. The pawn shop owner looked in the bag at used straws. They explained they'd collected these from different restaurants. The owner asked why they saved used straws. They said straws are being banned, so these might become collectible. The owner explained used single-use items are not collectible. They argued some were from restaurants that closed. The owner said that doesn't make used straws valuable. They insisted someone might want them for historical purposes. The owner said no one collects used fast food straws. They counted 50 straws and said that must be worth something. The owner said 50 pieces of used garbage is still garbage. They reduced to $8, then $5. The owner declined. They asked if washing them helped. The owner said no amount of washing makes used straws valuable. They tried another pawn shop who asked them to leave. The stupidity was collecting used straws, thinking bands make used ones collectible, expecting toilet for used straws, claiming they have historical value, and asking if washing helps. 40. A person tried to pawn a collection of used paper clips asking for $10. They brought in a container of paper clips that were bent and tangled. The pawn shop owner asked about the bent paper clips. They explained they'd collected these from various documents over the years. The owner said paper clips cost $3 for a box of 100 new ones. They argued these were quality metal, not cheap ones. The owner pointed out they were bent and tangled. They said they could be straightened. The owner explained new paper clips cost almost nothing, so used ones are worthless. They insisted quantity mattered. There were hundreds. The owner said hundreds of worthless items equals worthless. They offered to organize them by size. The owner declined. They reduced to $7, then $5, then $3. The owner said it would cost more to buy new paper clips than what they're asking, showing how worthless used ones are. They tried another pawn shop who laughed. The stupidity was collecting used bent paper clips, expecting $10 for items that cost $3 new, arguing they can be straightened, thinking quantity matters for nearly free items, and not understanding paper clips are too cheap to have resale value. 41. Someone brought a collection of receipts from their wedding asking for $50. They carried in a folder of receipts from their wedding expenses 5 years ago. The pawn shop owner asked what these receipts were for. They explained these were from their wedding: venue, catering, flowers, dress, everything. The owner asked why they thought wedding receipts have value. They said receipts are important documents. The owner said they're important to the person who incurred the expenses, not strangers. They argued someone planning a wedding might want to see actual costs. The owner explained no one buys other people's receipts for reference. They insisted these were from high-end vendors, showing premium quality. The owner said that doesn't give personal receipts resale value. They offered to sort them by category to make them more useful. The owner asked them to leave. They reduced to $30, then $20, then $10. The owner declined at every price. They tried another pawn shop with the same result. They posted online and commenters explained receipts are personal documents with no value to others. The stupidity was keeping wedding receipts for 5 years, bringing them to a pawn shop, thinking receipts from your life have value to strangers, expecting $50 for personal documents, and not understanding receipts are worthless to others. 42. A person tried to pawn a collection of used napkins from famous restaurants asking for $40. They brought in a bag of paper napkins from various well-known restaurants. The pawn shop owner looked in the bag at used napkins with stains. They explained these were from famous restaurants around the country. The owner asked why anyone would want used napkins. They said these were souvenirs from memorable meals. The owner explained used napkins are trash, not souvenirs. They insisted some were from Michelin-starred restaurants. The owner said that doesn't make used napkins valuable. They argued napkins have the restaurant logos, which makes them collectible. The owner explained no one collects used napkins with food stains. They counted 30 napkins from different cities. The owner said quantity of garbage is still garbage. They offered to flatten and preserve them better. The owner asked them to leave. They reduced to $25, then $15. The owner declined. They tried another pawn shop who was disgusted. The stupidity was collecting used napkins, thinking restaurant logos make napkins collectible, expecting $40 for garbage, claiming they're souvenirs, and not understanding used napkins are worthless regardless of where they're from. 43. Someone brought a bag of used tea bags asking for $8, explaining they're still good for one more use. They carried in a bag of used tea bags they'd dried after use. The pawn shop owner was horrified. They explained these tea bags had only been used once and could be reused. The owner said selling used tea bags is disgusting and unsanitary. They argued tea bags can be used 2 to 3 times traditionally. The owner refused to discuss it. They insisted they were from expensive tea brands. The owner asked them to leave immediately. They said they just needed a few dollars. The owner threatened to call police if they didn't leave. They seemed confused why this was being rejected. They tried another pawn shop who called security. They posted online complaining and comments universally criticized them. They still defended their idea as economical. The stupidity was saving used tea bags, bringing them to a pawn shop, expecting $8 for used bags, arguing they can be reused, not understanding how unsanitary this was, and defending it online. 44. A person tried to pawn a collection of used aluminum foil asking for $10, explaining they'd flattened and cleaned it. They brought in sheets of aluminum foil they'd saved, cleaned, and flattened after using. The pawn shop owner asked what the crinkled aluminum was. They explained it was used aluminum foil they'd saved and cleaned. The owner said no one buys used aluminum foil. They argued aluminum is recyclable and has value. The owner said you recycle it, you don't resell it used. They insisted they'd spent time cleaning and flattening it. The owner explained that doesn't create resale value. They said there were 20 sheets worth of foil. The owner said quantity doesn't matter for used disposables. They offered to demonstrate how well they'd cleaned it. The owner declined. They reduced to $7, then $5, then $3. The owner said, take it to recycling for pennies. They asked if selling it by weight helped. The owner asked them to leave. They tried another pawn shop with the same result. The stupidity was saving used aluminum foil, cleaning and flattening it, expecting $10 for used foil, thinking cleaning adds value, and not understanding used aluminum foil goes to recycling, not resale. 45. And finally, someone brought a jar of their baby teeth to a pawn shop, asking for $100, claiming they were family heirlooms. They walked into a pawn shop carrying a small jar filled with approximately 20 baby teeth they'd lost as a child. The pawn shop owner opened the jar and immediately recoiled in disgust, asking what these were. They proudly explained these were all their baby teeth their mother had saved from childhood. The owner asked why on earth they brought baby teeth to a pawn shop. They explained these were precious family heirlooms passed down from their mother. The owner explained teeth are not heirlooms and have no monetary value whatsoever. They argued baby teeth are irreplaceable and priceless. The owner said irreplaceable doesn't mean valuable to strangers. These are someone's used body parts. They insisted some cultures consider baby teeth valuable. The owner said not in a monetary sense at pawn shops. They calculated that 20 teeth at $5 each equals 100. The owner asked where they got the $5 per tooth figure. They said that's what the tooth fairy pays. The owner explained the tooth fairy is imaginary and doesn't set market rates. They insisted these teeth were in perfect condition. The owner said condition is irrelevant for used human teeth. They offered to throw in the decorative jar. The owner firmly declined and asked them to leave immediately. They seemed genuinely confused and hurt by the rejection. They said their mother said these were precious. The owner explained precious to your family doesn't mean valuable for resale. They asked if getting them professionally cleaned would help. The owner said absolutely nothing would make baby teeth sellable at a pawn shop. They reduced their asking price to $75, then $50. The owner refused at any price. They asked if dental gold teeth would be different. The owner said yes, but these were baby teeth, not gold. They left disappointed carrying their jar of teeth. They tried 2 more pawn shops who had similar horrified reactions. One pawn shop owner suggested they might have psychological issues for trying to sell baby teeth. They posted online asking if pawn shops were being unreasonable. Comments overwhelmingly said the teeth were worthless and disturbing to try to sell. Some suggested keeping them for sentimental value if they meant so much. They argued that sentiment should translate to monetary value. People explained that's not how value works. They eventually kept the jar of teeth, but still believed pawn shops missed out on a valuable item. The stupidity was bringing your baby teeth to a pawn shop, thinking used human teeth are valuable heirlooms, expecting $100 for body parts, calculating value based on tooth fairy rates, offering to get them professionally cleaned, trying multiple pawn shops with human teeth, not understanding that personal sentimental value doesn't equal monetary value, and believing strangers would want to buy your childhood teeth as if they were precious gems instead of biological waste that should have been thrown away decades ago. These pawn shop stories prove that just because something means something to you doesn't mean it has any value to anyone else. Personal items, used disposables, garbage, and your childhood body parts aren't commodities. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed learning what not to bring to a pawn shop. And remember, if you have to argue why something is valuable, it probably isn't. And for the love of everything, don't save your baby teeth thinking they're worth $100.